Biden-Harris administration to reject cabinet appointments for people with a long history of using the machinery and mechanisms of government to advance systemic racism. We urge the rejection of our former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo for Transportation Secretary or any other cabinet position in the administration. There are plenty of potential appointees who would serve that position well. These four in particular, with the many policies that advance systemic racism and white supremacy, are not some of them. CNN recently reported this past weekend that these four are finalists for Transportation Secretary. Now, we have no inside knowledge of that decision-making process. And we truly hope that they are casting a wider net because the transportation pick is extremely important, especially to our community. You'll recall that in Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, one of his top promises was to create millions of clean energy jobs. And we know that the infrastructure for that runs through the Department of Transportation. The Transportation Secretary determines who gets jobs, who gets contracts, and in which communities that activity happens. And those daily decisions have a huge impact on Black America. I can say here in South Bend, we saw Pete Buttigieg give less than 1% of city contracts to Black businesses. We saw Black communities here have their homes torn down by his administration. We saw the machinery of his police department turn against Black people, and the homeless shelters kick Black people out on the streets. South Bend residents know very well that in addition to our former small town mayor being completely unqualified for a run for a cabinet agency, Pete would continue his record of hurting Black communities every day in his decision-making process. And we strongly believe that hurting Black communities is not worth the price of doing a political favor for Pete Buttigieg because he endorsed your campaign in the primary. And that message, as many of us know, applies to other folks on this call in their cities as well. And so today we're going to hear from Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is a mentor of mine and leads the Los Angeles Black Lives Matter chapter. She's on the ground. And also a professor of Pan-African Studies at California State University. We'll also have alderwoman and activist Jeanette Taylor, who represents Chicago's 20th Ward, co-founder and executive director of BLM Rhode Island PAC. And finally, South Bend City Councilman Henry Davis Jr. So each speaker will have 2 to 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll have to get in line to ask a question. Just use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. If you have any questions after the event or need a recording of this call, you can email us, BLM, that's B as in Black, L as in Lives, M as in Matter, .southbend@gmail.com. So with that, I want to first introduce Dr. Melina Abdullah from BLM Los Angeles to speak a little bit about why.
Sure, so greetings everybody. You hear a lot of noise behind me. We are in day 22, and I'll take this mask off so you can hear me a little bit. I'm away from the crowd, so. You hear a lot of noise behind me because we're in day 22 of protests in front of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti's house. Hundreds of us have been showing up every single day since the Biden transition team was activated to attempt to block Garcetti. That's our hashtag, block Garcetti from any cabinet post. Initially, it was rumored that he was being considered for either Secretary of HUD or Secretary of Transportation. We know that Marcia Fudge has been named the HUD Secretary, which we're crediting ourselves with that because we lifted up the fact that under Eric Garcetti, the houseless rate in the city increased by 42%. We have 41,290 unhoused folks at the last count, and it's projected that another 120,000 Angelenos will be without homes in the next month or two. The second position, though, the Secretary of Transportation position, is equally problematic. In Los Angeles, we know that Eric Garcetti has chosen to divest from the busing system under which that most working class people use. His divestment resulted in fares that were so high that it required federal intervention. We also know that his spending on a new train line has been used to gentrify communities. He has bent to the will of millionaire and billionaire land developers, including Live Work, which was slated to purchase the Black Mall, the quote unquote Black Mall, Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Mall, and is heavily invested in by the Trump family, including Jared Kushner. So we're strongly opposed to Eric Garcetti receiving any cabinet appointment, but the transportation appointment is particularly problematic. Finally, you all well know that Los Angeles is the home to the most deadly police force in the entire nation. More people die at the hands of LAPD than any other policing unit in the country. And the commission that is supposed to oversee them has refused to hold them accountable, And we've seen LAPD unleashed on the demonstrators, the peaceful demonstrators, very noisy, but peaceful demonstrators that you see behind me. On Sunday, December 6th, dozens of police officers targeted our protesters, including children. They tackled an elder who's more than 70 years old to the ground and beat him viciously, and sent 2 of our people to the hospital and injured dozens of others. So we are saying that we're going to demonstrate, we're going to protest in front of the mayor's mansion every single day until it's confirmed that Eric Garcetti receives no cabinet appointment. We stand in solidarity with all of the other Black leaders and Black Lives Matter chapters who are also trying to block their mayors from being appointed, block those who've demonstrated blatant disregard for Black life from appointment to any cabinet position, especially the Department of Transportation.
All right, thank you so much, Melina. I appreciate your comments, your remarks. Next, we'll hear from Chicago Alderwoman and activist Jeanette Taylor. Again, she represents Chicago's 20th Ward.
Good morning. I am Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor of the 20th Ward in Chicago, and there are numerous reasons why ex-Mayor Rahm Emanuel only qualifies to clean up behind the White House dog. First of all, he covered up 16 shots where they shot 18-year-old Laquan McDonald and tried to pay off the family. He is the mastermind behind the largest school closing in the United States history in Black and brown communities of 50 schools. Myself and 11 other brave folks went on a 30-day hunger strike to save the last open enrollment high school in our community. Does this sound like somebody who deserves to be in the White House? My answer is no. We've already had 4 years of disinvestment and mistreating the folks around our community. And to put Rahm Emanuel in charge of transportation is ludicrous and unheard of. Rahm Emanuel doesn't deserve to be in the White House. We need folks in the White House who actually represent Black and brown folks. We need people in the White House who actually represent the working class folks, low income and working families. He does not do that. He is in charge of privatizing half of Chicago. Chicago Public Schools is in disarray because of his appointment of the CEO. We have an appointed school board. He stood in the way of us getting elected school board. And think about this. There are 299 school districts in the state of Illinois. The only one that's appointed is Chicago, thanks to Rahm Emanuel. And so this is not a man that deserves to be in that position. He doesn't deserve to be in any position. It behooves me that people mistreat folks of color and they dismantle cities where we've actually loved and born and raised, and places we fled to from the 50s and 60s, and then they qualify to be in some high cabinet position to change this country. That's a no for Chicago. The only job he qualifies for is cleaning up after the White House now.
All right, thank you very much. Next, can we have Corey Jones speak?
Yeah, so we here in Rhode Island strongly oppose Gina Raimondo getting any position in the Biden administration. First and foremost, Gina has been attempting to dismantle the public transportation hub in Providence. Kennedy Plaza bus terminal is in position to be damaged with irreparable damage, and it's a critical infrastructure for communities of color in Providence here, and Gina wants to dismantle it in favor of commercialization and gentrification. So why would we put someone at a position that they've already failed at in their job? Why would we put them at that position? So we strongly oppose Gina being appointed in any position with Biden, as she's cut safety nets on communities of color. She's cut funding for communities of color, and also has been working single-handedly to dismantle public transportation in the state of Rhode Island and the city of Providence.
All right, thank you very much, Corey. Lastly, let's hear from South Bend Common Councilman Henry Davis Jr. Henry, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, great. I appreciate everyone on this phone call, and I think that we all have basically the same stories. Mayor Buttigieg did a really bad job to this community as well as to my district. While being mayor, he started a program called 1,000 Houses, 1,000 Days, which was a very aggressive way of demolishing homes that were in the second district. After he completed that, he had no plan for redevelopment of these particular areas. Then right after that, goes into this thing called Smart Streets, where he changed over to all the traffic patterns around this district. Two major corridors coming in from the west end of town, which is part of the district, Lincoln Way and Western Avenue, and then also to downtown area, which is a part of my district as well. What I'm saying is that once he changed all the traffic patterns, what happened is that a lot of the traffic that we need as far as commerce that comes into the city was redirected to other areas. One thing we do know about business owners, they want the least path of resistance when they're operating their businesses. So having semi trucks that usually travel these routes because it's easier. Now that they changed their routes, and usually they change their locations of businesses. So we're losing out on money. We're losing out on tax-based expansion. We're losing out on jobs. Bus lines being shut down, cut off, especially to one of the poorest and most impoverished census tracts in the district, and even in the city, they don't have a bus anymore. And if the bus does run through some act of God, you will have it show up maybe once every blue moon. So behind all of that, there also was a problem with when the traffic patterns were switched from the major corridors from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So driver behavior doesn't change. People just try to find the least path of resistance. You started having drivers ride down the middle of neighborhoods at a rate of speed that was obviously illegal. You've had a few deaths. One in particular, a young boy named Tristan Moore, and this one is really close to my heart because it just broke my heart because I have a child his same age as that he was before he died. He was on his way to school very early in the morning, him and his little brother, and they was crossing a major street again within the second district, a street that was being changed over. As a matter of fact, there was a street light that was there that Mayor Buttigieg took away for purposes of this project. After neighbors have asked and even begged for them to put that street light back there because it was necessary, chose not to. They were driving at a high rate of speed, doesn't see him because it's dark outside, He hits the little boy and drags him several feet to his death while his little brother watches this. Um, Newspaper reports thereafter was stating that Tristan darted out in front of the car. There was no cameras out there. There was no video evidence that suggests that Tristan darted out. But we do know that the young boy is dead. We do know that the light was missing after, neighbors have complained that the light needed to come back. Well, unbeknownst to us, some active guy, Pete, thought it was a good idea to put the light back. Well, there was still a blame on this lost life, this young boy. I think he was maybe 11 years old when this happened. And so it was just the fact that people won't even acknowledge the fact that they've done anything wrong is something that really bothers me when it comes to this political game. That was a life lost. That young boy didn't deserve to die. And there's countless of stories about how traffic patterns have interrupted our quality of life. And in some cases, like I said, it has turned out deadly. And he's not the only one.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Henry. I really appreciate your remarks. I wanted to see if folks had any questions from the press. If you would, you can select the raise your hand function there at the bottom, or you can comment in the chat if that helps. Sorry, Alice, did you want to unmute?
Hi, thank you so much. Alice Olstein with Politico. I wanted to ask the panelists whether and how they've communicated these concerns to the Biden transition as they're making these cabinet decisions.
So I have reached out. This is Jordan with Black Lives Matter South Bend. I did email folks on his a rep with his transition team, and I let them know that we were going to be having this. But we're certainly, I'm sure other folks will be willing to meet with him, his team as well, to communicate these concerns. One of the big issues that has been raised is around contracts. If you look at someone like Mayor Pete, I mean, he has no real history or record of working with Black-owned businesses. And so in this day when we're facing this pandemic and we're dealing with the reality that 40 to 50% of Black-owned businesses are set to close down, we need to have someone who's heading that department who understands these issues on day one and has a proven record of addressing them.
And have you gotten any kind of response or acknowledgement to sharing that with Biden's team?
No, I have not yet. I don't know if anyone else on this call has reached out, but I have not heard back yet.
Jordan, I want to piggyback off of that because I think that it's a little bit more hardcore than you let on. I think Pete really refused to deal with Black businesses. And why I can say that from my vantage point is because I authored a bill to include MBE, WBE, disadvantaged business enterprises. And there was an attempt for the city to begin to intentionally include businesses that were headed by people of color, mainly Black. And when he took office, this was already there. It was pretty fresh, but it was already there. And he chose not to deal with it. As a matter of fact, he hired in a consulting firm, came out of Chicago, that was a MBE business, gave him all kinds of money not to do anything. Thereafter, he goes into another stunt, because this was all stunts, and then carried over for years with asking another firm to come in and do a study on how do we go about working with Black businesses. And so thereafter that, he went into another move that it continued to like stretch out the process of supporting those who needed the most, or those who had the opportunity or the ability to service the community. And so, no, I don't particularly think that it was a by accident. There were many moves that were taken that prolonged the agony. And then at the end of the day, we're still here holding the bag, because just here recently, we got another report claiming that we can do this, but we still need to make some policy changes. And so when does the madness end? You know, when does it end? I mean, when a person tells you who they are, I mean, I think we should probably believe them. And so he's told us for years in on out that that's something that he was not interested in doing, and he didn't do it.
All right, thank you. We have Beatrice Peterson with ABC. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hey, thanks for having this. So I'm just wondering if you guys have talked to any other Black Lives Matter other chapters across the country about these issues and rallying in favor or against certain picks for Biden's cabinet.
Melina, did you want to speak to that? Let's see. Okay, so she's at action, so I don't know if she can hear, but yeah, there are chapters across the country that are putting pressure on the mayors and also on Joe Biden's administration to block certain picks. And so it just so happened that we have a slate of candidates who are set to be nominated for this particular position, who all have a common track record of being anti-Black and of promoting white supremacy within their tenures. And so, the Black Lives Matter Global Network has lifted up a petition to block Garcetti, supported the work against Pete Buttigieg, and we've seen the work of Chicago around Rahm Emanuel over a number of years. So that work is certainly happening. Alice with, I'm sorry, not Alice. Kate Stafford, I'm sorry, with AP.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for putting together this call. Just broadly speaking, in addition to the concerns that you all have raised today, just curious if there's, I guess, a greater concern just about will the Biden administration actually be able to deliver on a lot of the promises that he made on the campaign trail? And if so, just curious to hear the thoughts behind how various chapters would push for the change that you guys are seeking.
I can speak to BLM at the end, but I wanted to give other folks an opportunity to speak to that question.
So for Chicago, we already had a petition signed of 5,000 folks for Rahm Emanuel not to take this job, but also realizing that Biden and Kamala Harris are not perfect candidates. And so there's a big difference between Biden and 45. And the difference is Biden will talk, we can negotiate, Biden, we will push. And so it'll be no different than other administrations. We have to work together and actually talk about the things that we want to see. You couldn't get that seat when 45 was in office. Hopefully we'll have a chance once Biden and Harris take office, but it's just a matter of us working together and pushing legislation that helps folks around the country. We still talking about a stimulus package when folks haven't gotten money for months. We're still talking about COVID-19. Chicago has some of the highest death rates in the country. And so we're looking to work with this administration and definitely put policies and work together to put things in place to make sure that we get the country back on its feet.
Okay, Melina, are you back on?
I am back on. I'm sorry for dropping off.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, could you repeat that question?
Sure, yes. Cat Staffer here with the AP. I was just curious, broadly speaking, aside from the concerns stated on the call today, are you guys at all concerned about the Biden-Harris administration in the sense of being able to really reach a lot of the campaign promises that they made? And if so, how would you push for the change that you're hoping to see?
Sure, we are concerned. We know that the Biden-Harris administration met with, we'll say, more traditional civil rights leaders, but refused to respond to our letter requesting a meeting with Black Lives Matter. And that doesn't bode well for having trust in the administration. We're hoping that that meeting is coming, but we need to remember that Black Lives Matter was measured to be the largest social justice movement in global history. And so it's important that as they consider who are their cabinet picks, as they consider what policies they want to advance, that they also honor the fact that Black folks and Black organizers and Black folks, especially with Black Lives Matter, really were behind voting Trump out and opening up that seat for them. And so there should be an expectation of communication. There should be an expectation that there is conversation, and there should also be an expectation that they honor the positions that we're taking. And so we're hopeful that they hear us. We know that they're aware of the protests that have been happening here in Los Angeles. We know that they're aware of the position that Black organizers have taken around many of those who they're considering for cabinet picks. And we hope that they remember that we have committed to both vote and organize. So we voted in November and we're continuing to organize, which part of that means holding them accountable as well.
All right, thank you so much, Melina. I just want to ask, are there any final questions from folks, media folks, before we wrap up? Okay. All right, seeing none. Just wanted to see if our panelists will be willing to, offer any kind of final remarks, maybe taking a 30,000 foot perspective on what it means to have someone who oversaw systemic racism run a giant arm of government like the Department of Transportation, sort of what the implications of that means. I don't know if any panelists want to make any final remarks speaking to that.
Yeah, I'd like to just make some final remarks, kind of speaking off of the comment of, the greater concern, with the administration, and holding up to their promises. Our organization, Black Lives Matter, RI PAC, Rhode Island PAC, and New England PAC, both formed on kind of the idea that, we can't really, trust any politicians to really do anything. And that's why the BLM movement has to kind of gear up into political spending where we can primary folks. So here locally in Rhode Island, the political co-op has, and other progressive organizations as well as us have, primaried a lot of folks and took out a lot of, Democrats who have been in positions for a long time. But we're hoping to bring that energy to a national and, countrywide level.
Anyone else? Henry, Alderwoman?
Sure, I'll take about couple minutes. I think that we need to really put this in context, and as it relates to economic freedom or justice for people who are, not necessarily on the top of the totem pole. Transportation provides a number of things and outlets for people who are systematically put in corners and boxes because of their economic situation. With a great transportation system that operates in a municipality such as the South Bend or Chicago or wherever, that gives those people within that population an opportunity to seek out jobs in other areas that may give them a leg up on quality of life that they deserve. And if we are not really paying attention to what is happening, what is occurring, we're going to miss out on an opportunity to support people who need the support. We're going to miss an opportunity to stop some of the violence that many of our cities are experiencing. We're going to stop an opportunity for someone to build wealth within our communities. So transportation is like really the first start when it comes to economic development in our municipalities. And we need someone that's going to be fair in that position, that's going to say, hey, I want to lift up another demographic of people. I want to employ another demographic of people. I wanted to make sure that they are not only getting these jobs, but these jobs are improving their quality of life, meaning, again, the violence, meaning the ability to go buy groceries from the grocery store, or even at some point in time, go and purchase themselves a vehicle for their family. So I think that we roll these conversations to
Okay, I think Henry went.
is a very high level priority that creates so much good, and sometimes it could also create just as much bad if not handled properly. So again, I thank you for letting me participate and have a voice on this conversation. But we can't have the people that we know in these seats that have these terrible track records. We have to have someone that has a track record that's interested in dealing with the entire public, just not their friends.
Yeah, absolutely. We need someone who is, ready and prepared on day one, and not someone who has to learn on the job. I think we've seen that from all of our representatives who are in contention for this position. So I want to thank you all for being on this call, and I have to get ready to go teach. So I just appreciate you all for being here, asking questions, and I especially want to thank our panelists for being on this Zoom call today and speaking on the record of, their current and formerly elected officials. So thank you.